Nothing matters. Once you're born, eventually you're going to die, and so everything in this universe will one day come to an end. You probably heard this concept before under the term nihilism. This idea is usually taken as a gloomy or depressing concept. While it is taken as nothing matters, in general, it has actually three main types. First one, existential nihilism, which means life has no actual meaning nor value. And from the perspective of the vast universe, human existence is nothing but a mere coincidence. And this one is the most common form of nihilism. The second type is moral nihilism. It means that no right and wrong exist in the universe. It was only invented by humans to help societies function together. That morality in itself has no fundamental law of physics that it follows. And the third type is epistemological nihilism. It argues that humans can never attain true knowledge because our capabilities and senses are very limited. To even suggest the theory there may be colors we can see, or tastes we can taste, or touch senses we can feel, which all limits our ability to have absolute knowledge, to which we can never know truly if what we perceive as reality is actually real. Taking these three types, we can conclude some individuals become nihilistic because life itself is meaningless and we are an accident, and there is no true weight for the concept right and wrong, and even knowledge itself cannot be truly attained. Friedrich Nietzsche, the prophet of nihilism, his ideas were tightly tied to nihilism, although he himself was not a nihilist. He was in fact worried about it. He famously wrote, "God is dead," which didn't mean a literal deity's death, but rather the idea that society was losing faith in traditional religion and absolute moral truths. And since Nietzsche viewed this topic as a historical crisis and a psychological disease that Western society was about to catch, he wrote his most famous statement, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." He meant how modern science and enlightenment has affected people. They no longer truly believe in God or divine power. However, despite that, he warned that people were still denying to the old moral systems. He argued that once you pull the fundamental rug out of everything built on top of it, eventually collapses. And that collapse is nihilism. Nietzsche predicted that there will be two types of nihilists. First category will be passive nihilism. People would say nothing matters and give up on believing and living and form suicidal thoughts. However, the other category is active nihilism, which can be used as a tool. People could say nothing matters and use it as a reason to try whatever they want, knowing everything is perishable and no point in holding on. Nietzsche's way of overcoming this crisis was what he called the will to power. He believed the driving force in humans isn't just to survive, but to grow, conquering one's weaknesses and expressing creative strength. He used a famous term called the Übermensch, a combination of two German words, Über meaning over or beyond, and Mensch meaning human or man. This term was a psychological idea of a person who is strong enough to face a completely meaningless universe, reject the values of the crowd, and completely invent their own values out of sheer willpower. However, looking at all this, a question begs itself. How truthful is nihilism, and should we actually live with it? Or is it nothing more than a suicidal thought that is an excuse to live a meaningless life? And what does religion has to say about this? This concept of nihilism does not follow the laws of the universe because it argues nothing is meaningful and we are nothing but a mere coincidence, so we serve no purpose. The thing about our world is that everything happens for a reason. The Big Bang in itself was a coincidence, but without it, nothing could have existed. Prehistoric creatures died because if they lived in our time, their numbers would have gotten 10 times larger, and so is their bodies, and many environmental issues would occur. Great hungers, less space for animals, and potentially the end of all animals. Humans themselves play a large role in animal existence. Some that were extinct may have took over and ruined the world's balance, and many infinite possibilities, even in our day-to-day life. How many times something had happened to you that prevented you from doing something else that turned out afterwards a blessing that served a greater purpose. The idea of nothing matters in itself could be wrong. The only purpose nihilism can be used for, without diminishing returns, is to be aware that life has two guaranteed beginning and ending points. Birth and death, you can imagine it as a straight line with the end point being your life's end. So whatever you do between the beginning and the end shouldn't matter because the outcome never changes. Meaning you are free to do anything because you only have 70 years of life that is not even guaranteed to live all. You could die now. Reflect on your life. Are you ready? If the answer is no, stop what you view as meaningless and live your life. Talk to the person you're interested in. Apply for the job you truly want to work at. Study what you're genuinely interested in. Others around us do not matter. We're all going to die, and no one's going to face regret of not doing for you. People can argue as much as they want that life is meaningless, but that is the point, to give your life meaning, focusing on what you actually want to do and to be. We all come with nothing, and we all leave with nothing. What changes is who you come as and who you leave as. Many individuals would speak about an unfulfilled life and swear that this fulfillment lies in money or relations or status. True life fulfillment is dying with no regret or saying, what if I done this or that? You can either live a life of uncertainty of what you may have done if you have acted, or life of true knowledge of knowing what you did and what was the outcome. If nihilism should be taken some way, this must be the right way. In most religions, our lives are given meaning and purpose. We are here by the will of God, and our lives have meaning by worshipment. Some may not be religious, but it doesn't mean our only purpose is to worship God. Our true purpose is doing what we know we want and should do. However, religions had different perspectives about nihilism. As for Christianity, it said and believed that God created our lives purposefully, which proves our existence is valuable and contains divine meaning. And the purpose of our creation focuses on knowing God, reflecting His character in our actions, and love the others. And Christianity asserts that absolute truth and objective morality exist because they are rooted in the unchanging character of God. Concepts of justice, love, and sin are viewed as real and consequential rather than subjective preferences. And nihilism can lead to despair and living an emotionless, meaningless life, while Christianity holds the complete contrary, as it fills the believer's spirit with hope. As for Islam, it stands on the same side as Christianity. Our existence is meaningful, except it introduces a different purpose of existence, which is loving and worshipping God for a higher purpose, which is achieving a high spiritual state known as inner peace, referred to in the Islamic holy book, the Quran, as al-yaqeen. And this state can be reached only with true belief in God and commitment and certainty of any bad is for a greater good, and questioning God's existence to reach absolute certainty and belief. Judaism is similar to Islam and Christianity, except it's less focused on the afterlife and puts a heavy emphasis on a concept called Tikkun Ulam, which translates to repairing the world, which naturally involves giving life meaning to desire fixing it, and pursuit kindness and justice to fulfill their cosmic purpose. However, Buddhism has rather a fascinating idea, as many mistakenly connect it with nihilism. Of course, the concept of emptiness. In this religion, it is believed that things are empty of a separate, independent existence. Everything is interconnected and constantly changing. For example, a tree is empty of being just a tree. It relies on soil, rain, sunlight, etc. And this is the fascinating flow of interconnected life, which doesn't sound like nihilism, because being nihilistic means you do not believe anything has a value or a true weight. Also, the law of karma is introduced in this religion, as anything that happens, any action has a reaction that would follow it eventually, which is the complete opposite of nihilism, as it is said to be no actions are meaningful. For the last religion we're going to discuss, Hinduism, it took a different approach than previous religions, as it argues that everything in our daily life doesn't have meaning because it is not permanent. And it suggests we are looking for meaning in the wrong place. Things that are not permanent in our world are meaningless. It introduces the idea true meaning can only be found from within and inward self-reflection. In summary, nihilism in itself isn't a religion, more it is a concept of materialistic objects in our lives. We can learn from it and what the other religions introduce, that there is more to life than attaching meaning to certain achievement or object. True meaning can be found in one's self, doing what he pleases. Taking nihilism very literally would strip you away from living. Therefore, the best approach to value life in a spiritual context. Therefore, the best approach is to value life in a spiritual context, because despite the religion you believe in, they all share one core idea, which is what you become throughout life, whether by what you do or what you believe or what you think. Thoughts are the only tool that shape our perspectives. So I personally believe life doesn't have an objective meaning, but rather a spiritual one throughout self-reflection. In other words, nothing matters but to a certain point. What matters is the individual's spiritual balance.